Guys, it's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I wanted to knock out the Sunday schedule. Uh, Survivor Series is starting, if I'm being honest, and I just find that way more entertaining than the games. I'll be checking on some of the college games. I know we got the UNLV, San Jose State actually beat them, I believe. We missed Colorado, unfortunately. That would have been a nice upset, but we missed that one. Looks like we're going to miss Vandy. We got Ohio State. So right now we're looking right about 50-50. Florida would be a really nice one. I went into this in my last video, how Florida would be a key victory because it's 200 as a leg too. But yeah, just a decent day so far. Hopefully Washington's hanging, or Washington State's hanging, I should say. Maybe they pull off the upset. That would be nice. So, like I said, if we can have a 50% hit rate and get even one of these upsets, it'll be a nice day. Or I'm thinking we're going to finish a little better than 50%. Again, we have 3 of our 7 picks, 3 of them are straight up dogs. So, of course, it's not going to be actually 8 picks. I added Colorado, so 3 of the 8 were straight up dogs, and pretty sizable dogs at that. But I have a feeling we're going to get at least one of them. But yeah, Michigan, I think they want people talking about the game and, quote, cheaters beating Marvin Harrison, who just people love Marvin Harrison Jr., and Ohio State. It just establishes Michigan as these great heels that people are going to want to see Georgia or whoever it is take down. That's just how I'm looking at it. Now, to get into these games, I had said already, I went into my last video how, to me, some of these lines right off the bat just were so shaky, in my opinion. So, the Steelers just got rid of Matt Canada, which obviously is a reason to think, okay, maybe they're going to come out and look like a different team. But I just can't get past the fact that there's no Joe Burrow. You're going up against one of the best defensive teams in the league on paper. Right? If you look at it realistically, this team's a menace. And you've been doing all right, but that, again, you've had Burrow. And now an average team. They're both average teams, I mean. But, again, without Burrow, the way they've looked this year, I don't get the 2.5, even in Cincy. I think it should be about 4 points, just because, again, the only reason you really bet on the Bengals is Burrow, Chase, their top guys. And when it's against a defense that's just been shutting down everybody, to me, I think everyone's going to be all over Pittsburgh here. So I like Cincinnati for the cover in this game. Jags, Texans. Initially, I was liking the Jags, and then, they say don't go against your instinct. But then I was thinking about it, and I do think that they really want to establish the Texans. So I do like the Texans to win this game. I think that, the Jags just pelted the Titans. The Texans barely beat the Cardinals. And just the way they're pushing Stroud, I don't think they're going to pull the rug at this point. And there's also that, I think it's the Colts and the Texans, I could be wrong. Like, basically they always run the narrative that the Jags' kryptonite is those teams. And obviously both of them are in the same division, so it's not really great to have 2 kryptonites, but they do. They like to say, I think it's just because they're garbage teams and they want to give them credibility. They'll always point out, the Jags struggle against the Texans, they struggle against the Colts. So to me, this is a perfect game. The public's probably going to be more on the Jags not believing in the Texans. So I like the Texans to win this game. Bucks, Colts. If I'm remembering correctly, and I'm almost positive I am, last year it was either 3 of the 4 teams in the NFC, I think it was 3 because it was 6-6-6, or it was all of the teams in the NFC South had the ability to move to 6-6. And I can't help but notice we're very close to that same thing happen again. 3 of the 4 teams can move to 5-6. And I'm not saying they're all going to move to 6-6, but I find it interesting. I said this at the beginning of the year. The winner of the NFC South is going to have a losing record. And it's going to be basically a repeat of last year. The only difference is I don't think it's going to be the Buccaneers. I like the Falcons this year. I think they're going to win again. I think because of Dion. And the running back narrative. These other teams have good quarterbacks. The running back narrative, obviously, the running backs are becoming obsolete. We don't need them anymore, etc. So I think Robinson starts catching fire, doing really well. And I think more of the public's going to be on the Saints. And I'm not going to lie, I like the prospect of if the Buccaneers who, by the way, I like the Buccaneers. If the Buccaneers win and the Falcons win, you're going to have 5-6, 5-6, 5-6, 5-6. Now the Colts aren't part of the division, but it's just interesting how those two games, and you can have 5-6, 5-6, 5-6, 5-6, and you know how much they love repetitious numbers. So for that reason, I like the Bucks to win outright, and I like the Falcons to win outright. Patriots, Giants, fishy. I mean, how can you defend this spread? In my opinion, DeVito, he only had one start, looked pretty good. Patriots are a mess. Again, I still think they're going to get Caleb, so I'm trying to use long-term booking, but I can't ignore a suspicious line. So I think Patriots are making this cover. They'll probably, one of the few games all year they'll look really good. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I know they want to Shane Belichick. Like I said, I think they're going to keep him. I really think they're going to get Caleb. They make the most sense to me now. Obviously, depending on if they win a couple games, then it might change. But I think they definitely make sense. And it's a story for Bill to finish with the worst record in the entire league. Now, again, this doesn't all mean that, like, every team that I have, just because I have a team winning the Super Bowl like the Niners or a team doing terrible, doesn't mean every week they're going to win or lose. But this particular week, yes, I like the Patriots here for the cover. Now we have Carolina and Tennessee. And I was leaning Tennessee because I was like, okay, they can still keep them alive. But if you look at the AFC, it's really stacked. And again, the Jags, Texans looks like a two-man race here. I don't think the Titans need this win. I think more people will probably be on them because the Panthers are so bad. And they can, I still think they're going to push Levis, but they've already established the guy. And it was weird because they had him in his first week when you would think they'd have the training wheels on. He was out there just letting it loose. And ever since then, he's been looking a lot like Bryce, where they're, just very simplistic plays. With all that being said, I like the Panthers here for the cover. I'm going to take the cover over the win just because I have a few upsets, and as far as this one, I feel like it could definitely be a 1-2 point game anyway, so I'll take the 3.5. Rams, Cardinals, this is for storyline. I like the Rams to cover. The Cardinals, I really don't think they're going to get the worst pick. If they do, I'm wondering if they have Caleb stay in college to start a new precedent, because his dad specifically said, I don't want my son going to the Cardinals. It's going to kill his career. Look at Kyler Murray, basically, paraphrasing. And I think Caleb said he could stay. So, yeah, I think that would be an interesting storyline. But with all that being said, I do think the Rams are going to stay on the Seahawks' tails. Again, I have them personally, from what I've seen this year, I have them making the playoffs before Seattle. I know Vegas doesn't have that right now, but I do think they're going to win this game. You could say it's a suspicious line, but it's not like the Rams have been amazing. The Cardinals got their potential all-star quarterback. I think he'd made one all-star, but even if he didn't, he played well. A good quarterback back, so I don't think it's that crazy of a line. And the Rams are still giving 2.5 on the road, so I don't think public's going to be slamming Los Angeles here. So I do like the Rams for the cover. Browns, Broncos, one of the plays I like, I guess, more than some of the others. It's the Broncos to cover here for the simple reason I don't think the public's on them yet. I'm not really completely convinced on the Browns. They're doing the same thing with the Browns and Steelers. No quarterback, defense carrying them. And the Jets were kind of doing that for a bit. Obviously, they're much further out, but they still have a shot. But I don't know. I think the Browns are going to come down to the wire as far as the playoffs. I think they would have kept Watson and just really established their guys. But it seems like a year where it's going to be the missed opportunities. Oh, Chubb got hurt, Watson got hurt. What could have been. Broncos, on the other hand, I don't think the public's on them yet. And this is a perfect game for them to win because then they're just one game out. Well, actually, I think they might actually be like, if they won this game, temporarily be a 7, depending on how some other games go. But they'd be one game out from the Browns, and a lot of these wild card teams might be tied with the Bills, or like I said, they could be a half game up on the Bills if they win and the Bills lose. So yeah, I like the Broncos here to cover. And yeah, the Rams to cover also. I'm not taking... You should, like, if you watch my videos, it's always plus odds are better. So the Rams cover, Broncos cover. Now, Chiefs, Raiders, and there's 2 over-unders I like. This is one of them. The other one, I'll check. I'm almost positive it's Patriots Giants, but I'm gonna go check. I posted it on my Discord, so just don't quote me on that. But I know for a fact one of the over unders is Chiefs Raiders. It's very simple. Both are the two of the worst teams in the league when it comes to the over. Chiefs at 20%, Raiders clocking in under 30%. There hasn't been one team in NFL history that, as far back as I can check, that they've calculated spreads that's played, a full season and finished even in the mid to high 70s or even in the low 30s. It's almost always mid 30s, and more particularly it's 40 to 60%. So you're not going to see teams finish 20% against the over. You have two teams here that are terrible in the over, so the public's more likely to take the under because of that anyway. So I absolutely love the over, and I like the Chiefs cover. Giving up about 10. It is the Raiders, but again, I don't think they're doing anything with the Raiders this year, and the public might be on the Chiefs, but I don't think they're going to love them laying 10 points. They've sold a lot of bigger spreads this year. So to me, this is one where they probably, especially after losing to the Broncos and the Eagles, they come back and they put a pounding on the Raiders. A statement game, if you will. So I like the Chiefs for the cover, and I love the over. Bills, Eagles, I thought about this one a little bit, and I did wind up settling on the Eagles. The reason being, I think I like them to cover. I think that, again, they were pushing the Bills, they might miss the playoffs, and they were really running with this story, and now with a win, that story just goes out the window. Like, now there's absolutely no resistance or resilience that you have to see from the Bills. Any kind of grit. Like, they're going to have to really figure something out to make the playoffs. Like, that story doesn't work, and they're still trying to run with it. So that's one reason that I feel like them losing makes sense, because then they can say, oh man, they got a lot to do to make the playoffs. They just lost. And as far as the Eagles, it's an interesting story if they beat the Chiefs and Bills back-to-back weeks. Even though the Bills are 6-5, I still would argue to say it's like Dallas in the NFC. I'd argue to say more people have them as the second best team in the AFC than the Ravens even. That's just my guess. Looking at public polls, things like that, people look at the Bills. They look at Josh Allen. They remember his feuds with Mahomes. The fact that the Bills have been dominant basically every year, and I don't think they're looking at that 6-5. So I like the Eagles here. I'm not saying the public's not going to be on them, but I think it's going to be pretty 50-50. And again, I think the Eagles are going to follow the path of the Celtics, where they just have another really good year, best record in the NFC, probably losing, deep in the playoffs. I don't see them repeating, but of course they're going to want money on them if they're not. Now, the Ravens-Chargers, I'm waiting on, because this line just looks absolutely insane. Like, I get, it's 3 points. How many are you going to give? You're in Los Angeles. But this team just has been so bad. The Ravens have been so consistent. It makes no sense. I can't see the Ravens not getting 80% of the handle here. That being said, I think there might be some kind of weird injury that they announce before the game. So right now, of course, I'm leaning Chargers, but I'm not going to play that one just yet. They might announce a phantom injury. And based off how some of these other AFC games go, then it'll be easier to determine the Chargers. Looking at how the Broncos game goes, the Steelers game, it'll be, in my opinion, a lot easier to make an assessment on that game. So I'm going to wait on that one. I've been picking the night ones with my other picks, but for this particular game, I think it's better we wait. Now, like I said, so these are going to be leg ones for one unit. We got the Eagles to cover, Broncos cover, Rams cover, Panthers cover, Bucks are winning upright. I have them winning outright, and the Bengals to cover. I'm going to take that cover in case it's a 1 or 2 point game. Now, the rest of these are leg 2s and leg 3s, which means they're for 2 units and 4 units. Last week we had Raiders covering. They did not. That means we're going to do 2 units now. So last week it was 1 unit. This will be 2 units. And that's the whole point of this system, is to profit 1 unit at least. Even if we have a horrible hit rate. Like last week we had the worst hit rate of the season. But all we need to do this week is have a pretty good hit rate, and we've profited over the course of both weeks. That's why I like this system, specifically for sports betting. I know some people that go to Vegas and go to the casinos told me they've used this system. You try it with roulette, you try it with other things. Both with sports betting, you have so many more numbers and metrics to work with that I think it definitely helps. Patriots terrible on the cover. Okay, and it wasn't the Patriots Giants. That's why I said don't quote me on that. I did go with the Patriots because they're horrible on the cover, and like I said, 4 points just looks very suspicious. It was the Bucks Colts. Bucks Colts both horrible on the over. Same with Chiefs Raiders, but it's really the Bucks here that are bad on the over. The Colts are right in the middle, but I like the over 44.5. Again, I try and compare it. It's like the Pacers, right? If the Pacers over under set at 250, and I kind of walked right into that trap not too long ago, then even though the Pacers have gone over like every game, it's still like, okay, well, who's going to be picking over 250? So then you kind of have competing metrics. But when I see one like this, or if it's like the Pacers are at 230, well, that's a more normal line. Okay, 230, people are going to be pounding the over. Here at the Bucks Colts, if this was set at like 36 points, then yeah, it's kind of hard to use the metric. But since it's set at 44.5 for two teams that have not gone over much, I like it and I love the over there. Same for the Chiefs Raiders. Both barely gone over, but as you can see, it's set at 43.5, which is about an average game score. We got the Falcons beating the Saints. That's a leg two. Again, the rest of these are leg twos. And then there was one more over that I just, here it is. And again, you had the Steelers Bengals. They put up 23 last week, and I went into how it was probably going to go under because they had set it really low. But again, now you're looking at a backup quarterback versus a defense that has been really good, but their offense sucks. I feel like the public's going to look at this, and again, if this was like 33.5, then I'd be more likely to stay away from it. But it's set closer to 40, and I feel like more people are definitely going to be taking the under in this game, so I'd love this game to go over. So again, for our leg threes, they're both metric plays, nothing to do with narratives. It doesn't mean we're going to get it, 100% get it, but the metrics do pay a lot better than the narratives, just because, again, it's historically backed. You just don't have teams finish with a certain percentage in the NFL. Each sport has their threshold. In the NFL, it's usually between 40 and 60%. These teams that I have picked of these 6 overs that I have, well, 3 overs, but these 6 teams, just terrible on the over. So something's got to give. So yeah, I like them to go over. So yeah, those are all of our plays. Like I said, there's Survivor. If you wanted to bet on Survivor Series, I was thinking about it, and it's a shame because the one, Santos Escobar, I think he's going to win. He was getting minus 300, moved all the way to minus 1,000. I do think Gunther's going to win. He was at minus 3,000, so not really great odds. I think Rhea Ripley's going to win minus 1,000, not great odds. The two ones where you're going to get decent odds is going to be the 2 War Games matches. And I thought about it, and it's going to be a split. One of the wins is going to be a heel, one of the wins is going to be a face, obviously. So it comes down to which group of bad guys wins. And I have a feeling just the odds, the Vegas odds back this up as well, but I think for the females, I think Damage Control is going to win. I do think they're going to beat up Bailey after the match, but I think they're going to win. And then for the final match, I think the good guys are going to win, Team Cody. So he's getting about minus 250, so that's not terrible odds. And Damage Control is getting about minus 200. So if you're able to even parlay those two, you're looking at about even odds. And like I said, that's just for people that like wrestling. Funny, sometimes we pick at a higher rate with other sports than wrestling, and people will use that logic to me. They'll say, oh, it's scripted, you should be able to pick every game correctly. And it's like, well, with that logic, I'd pick every wrestling match correctly, and I don't. So I never got that argument. I think it's a really weak one. If you actually observe and unravel the argument, we would be able to predict the killer in the next Scream movie. We'd be able to predict what happens at the end of the Thanksgiving movie that just came out. We'd be able to predict movies. We'd be able to predict the winner of American Idol. So yeah, just because it's scripted does not mean that we're going to be 100% correct in picking who's going to win. But it is funny because there's times it's actually harder to pick a WrestleMania than a Super Bowl. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I honestly think the NFL... Actually, if you guys want to watch Shannon Sharp's interview with Ric Flair, very, very fascinating. And Ric Flair goes into how WrestleMania was ripped off by the Super Bowl. And Shannon Sharp agrees with him. Now, of course, he's not talking about the game itself, but he's like all the cinematic theatrics, all of the larger than life pushes that you give the superstars on the field. It was taken from WrestleMania, and Shannon Sharp quickly agreed with him before kind of changing the subject. So, yeah, I found that interview to be really interesting. Just shows that these guys are a bunch of actors, and but yeah, I thought that again the scripted argument I always found amusing because it makes no sense once you think about it. But yeah, just for those wrestling fans of mine, I wanted to go into the 5 matches that I like for not WrestleMania, for the Survivor Series. If you could pick CM Punk to return, I went back and forth on this, and I don't want to cop out. I honestly have no. They've done such a good job. I'll say there's been teases, but the way wrestling has changed in the last 2 years, WWE, I actually don't think he's returning, but I do think he's going to return at Rumble or the night after WrestleMania or something, because I think they know the fans want him back at least one more time, and I think they're willing to give the fans that. But I think they also know he's not just so for people that don't know wrestling, CM Punk is basically Michael Jordan when he goes. If he went to Chicago with Michael Jordan, I have no doubt Punk would get cheered and Jordan would get booed. If you disagree with me, just Google CM Punk or YouTube CM Punk Chicago reaction or something to that effect, and it's pretty insane. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be in Chicago. So I think a lot of people are expecting him to return tonight in his hometown, and they could just return him at the Rumble. And by then, people will have been let down thinking, oh, he's definitely not returning. He would have returned in Chicago. Really obvious. And then he's going to get some crazy pop if he returns at the Rumble. So, just long-winded way of saying I don't think he's returning tonight. But, again, I don't want to take too much time going into that for people that don't like wrestling. But I figured I'd cover all the picks first, so if you don't like wrestling, by now you could have just, stopped watching. But for the people that do, I thought I'd go into who I think is going to. And for people that don't, but they just want to bet on it, those are the 5 matches. I think they're going to go, like I said, exactly. Like, sometimes they'll have props, so they'll have props like, will Damage Control turn on Bailey? And that, I think yes, they will. But if you can't get the props, yeah, I like Gunther, Rhea Ripley, Santos, Team Damage Control, and Team Cody. Those are the 5 winners that I think is going to happen. And that'd be a nice little parlay if you're able to, even with 3 of them being really unfavorable odds. The 2 are good enough odds that you're going to get more than plus odds if we get all 5 right. Which again, in wrestling, it's actually harder than you would think. But of course, based off how one match goes, it's very contingent in wrestling. That's why I think football is the same way. It's just like I say, if the good guys are winning this one, the bad guys are going to win here. I feel no different than like Michigan winning; they're the bad guys, and now we're going to have them in Georgia, or with divisional matchups where it's like, okay, well, if the Falcons win and the Bucks win, that creates an interesting 5 and 6 for everybody. So, yeah, I use a lot of wrestling logic, and it a lot of times happens to work with football. So, we'll see how it all goes, and I'll definitely have Ravens Chargers up in time. Right now, leaning Chargers, of course, but I'm going to have to see why this line is the way it is, and how the other games go will help. So, I'll probably get it up at. I won't wait till the 4 o'clock game's over, even though I'd like to see the Browns-Bengals result, and I'm pretty sure the Raiders are going to lose. But probably right after the 1 o'clock games, I'll get it out, because I think we'll have enough to work off just seeing how the Steelers-Bengals game goes, how the Texans game goes, how the Colts fare. There's a couple teams in here that are right up there, with the Chargers, so ahead of the Chargers. So we'll have enough information, and a lot of it's just waiting for the line, like not the line, the actual injury report, because again, this line makes absolutely no sense to me. So yeah, like I said, hopefully I think we'll have another good day, and for wrestling fans, hopefully we do well on the Survivor Series picks. So take care and happy earnings.